Mark was talking about with vested interests and political economy is also so crucial. So one of the things that you could write about in your learning portfolio this week is the connectedness of population growth and all of these other issues that we've been looking at. You could also sort of take your learning portfolio and just go back to last week's panel about which we were asking, can economics save the world? You would have got so many different answers to that very question. When we look at what Mark was talking about, what he was calling the development imperative, and he also cited the notion of the growth fetish, and this was something that Richard Dennis was talking about last week, and the need to go to what he called a steady state economy. So, on the other hand, you've got sort of, Peter made some very important points about sort of labour demand here in Australia. These are incredibly important issues that we've all got to deal with, about the sort of the problem of labour demand at the moment, which we've got to come back to as well. I'm no economist though. I suppose one of the ironies of economic analysis, maybe this is part of political economy, I agree with Peter that we do have a shortage of labour at the moment in Australia, but if it is true, one of the things I've never been able to understand is if labour demand is so high at the moment, then why do we have so many jobs that are paid such shit wages? And how come we've got so many casual and part-time workers? It's a very interesting question. I think, again, that this will have to come back to the political economists to try to answer that question. The third one, of course, is what I was talking about yesterday, the catastrophists and the cornucopians. I'll leave it up to you if you want in your learning portfolio to decide who is who. I think it might be quite easy to sort of see that sort of probably using Cotgrove's terms, I think Peter would be on the cornucopian side of the spectrum, while you could argue that Mark would be more on the sort of the catastrophe side, that we must change our sort of way of living if we're going to survive. While Peter, on the other hand, would just look at his first sort of slide where he says Australia will achieve a better result in relation to its own environment and its contribution to the reduction of global greenhouse gases if it has a strong economy. That was moving more closely to the type of analysis that we were looking at yesterday when we were looking at someone like Bjorn Lomborg's sort of analysis. Graham would be a very interesting one to see whether or not I think actually he'd probably be slightly on the catastrophist side as well, but he was certainly very careful in order to sort of show what he called the double-edged swordedness, if that's such a word, of almost everything that we have. One of the things that I think Graham really brought out really nicely that you might want to sort of think about is this notion of what I call imagining the future. I run a whole course in sociology called Imagining the Future. And a lot of it's about science fiction. And every time I listen to Mark and Graham and Peter, some of the scenarios that I do imagine are ones that I come from my reading of science fiction. And I really encourage you to do it. One of the best science fiction novelists at the moment is dealing precisely with these environmental issues. An American by the name of Kim Stanley Robinson. If you ever read any of his work, I thoroughly encourage you. It's one of the best novelists of environmental issues around today. But I think it's really important to actually look at these different types of scenarios of the future. The Mad Max scenario, which is a type of scenario I think that Will Stephens was warning us about when you look at what happens when our temperature goes up an average of 6%, or the grubbiness scenario, or the sort of marginally better, or the cornucopian one. And of course that nice one at the end that Graham gave us, which was the 1950s scenario, which I could see all of you thinking, oh my God, John Howard scenario. The John Howard utopia, who wants that? But in many ways, if you actually read Ian Lowe's latest little book, which is a quarterly, remember Ian Lowe was talking about as a catastrophist yesterday, he actually talks about going back to the 1960s as the type of scenario. So it's not very far off what Graham was saying as well. And I think it's really important, and when you're writing your essays, you're thinking about that notion that technology is a double-edged sword. I think it's always useful to remember that yes, technologies might have, if we implemented such and such a thing, then this would be the consequence, then put but. And I think that's a nice way, even when you are writing your essays, a good little template for you in your mind when you're being critical about your own arguments, to always have an if, then, but scenario. to help you with your essays. So that's just something else to think about. Gender relations, I'm really glad that Graham brought that up, and of course Peter and Mark also sort of touched on it as well. I just want to finish with one little, I don't know if we're going to be doing it this year. I don't think that we're going to have Ken Johnson coming in doing his lecture on demographics, but when we look at how many children we want to have, he used to, every single year with the class, he does a little experiment, and he asks everyone in the class, men and women, how many children do you want to have?
Stop, we're going to do it in tubes.
Okay, we're going to do this in tubes. I'm not going to okay, but it's a really interesting one, because I think you'll find some very interesting gender differences in terms of how many children women want and how many children men want. But we're just going to leave that in there. I've said more than enough. So can you please give a big hand of thanks